To get started drawing our 3D shapes, grab your sketchbook, open it up to a blank page in the back, and then you're just going to need a few tools. I want you to grab a ruler. I like the kind that you can see through if you have one of those. If not, any ruler will do. You're going to need your pencil and your eraser. Once you have those, we'll begin. So on the top of your sketchbook page, what you're going to write is 3D shapes. Now remember, 3D shapes are created by using 2D shapes and diagonal lines. Now in real life, when you can pick it up and hold it, this is a form. A drawing of a form is a 3D shape. So we're going to start with our cube as our 3D shape. You should have your cube form. If you do not have your cube form, or if your cube form's a little funky, just grab anything else that is a cube to help you look at it. So you can just place your cube in front of you so that you can see what it looks like. When you have your cube, you're going to start with a square because the face of our cube is a square. Now you can freehand your square to try to get it, pretty squarish, or you can use a ruler to help you make those straight lines. So either way is fine. You can either use the ruler to help you or just draw a square. Now what I do want you to use the ruler for are the next steps. We are going to be creating diagonal lines that are parallel for the rest of our square. Now the reason we need diagonal lines is because a three-dimensional form has height, width, and depth. It goes back in space. So height, width, and depth, those are the 3 dimensions. So you have the face of your cube, which is the square. From the bottom corner here, we're going to go up on a diagonal. Now I'm not going to have you measure. This is just going to be used to get your lines to be straight. So you're up on a diagonal like a check mark. Now we want this next part to be parallel, meaning it should not change the angle. So your ruler cannot turn. You're going to slide your ruler without letting it turn. And from the top corner, create another diagonal. Slide your ruler from the next corner, create a diagonal. So your diagonal lines should all be parallel, meaning that they are all on the same angle. They are never getting closer together or further apart from each other. Now we need to make our verticals and horizontals to complete the shape. So your horizontal lines are the bottom of your square, the top of your square, and the back edge of your square. These should be parallel lines. If you have a little bit hanging over, that's what your eraser is for. Then your verticals, same thing. We have vertical, vertical. So when I slide this over, it should be vertical, same parallel lines. We're going to try that square, but we're going to have it facing the other direction. So you're going to make your square again. Remember, you can either use your ruler to make your shape, or you can freehand it, but you do want it to be a square. So you want your lines to be nice and even. Okay, last time we did our check marks off to the right. Let's do it off to the left this time. You're going to go from the bottom left-hand corner, go up. Now remember, we need these to be diagonal, so you're going to slide your ruler, go up, slide your ruler, up. They should all be same, same, same. If you are noticing that any of your lines, when you had here, if you had same, same, and then when you slide it, if it turns, do you see how these two lines are going further apart from each other? You should be able to visually see that they need to be parallel. So if they appear to be getting closer or further away from each other, double check that before moving on to the next step. Okay, once you have your 3 parallel diagonals, you're going to do your verticals and horizontals. So I have horizontal, horizontal, horizontal. vertical, vertical, vertical. Now I noticed my diagonal wasn't quite long enough. I'm going to fill in that area there. So there's two different cubes. So you can label it cube. We're going to try one more cube where we're going to start our diagonals underneath. So again, add your square. Use your ruler if you need to. Okay, this time we're going to come from the bottom corner and go down from a diagonal. So from the bottom corner, I'm going to have you draw a diagonal line that comes down. Now remember, we're doing this in threes because this is a cube and we see 3 of the corners. So 3 edges here. 1, keep it parallel, keep it parallel. Parallel, parallel, parallel. Now, what you want to do here, same thing. If this is vertical, vertical, this one is vertical. Now your diagonal lines might not always be the right length. You just erase what's not there. So don't just connect them. You should be able to see that that looks very wrong, right? Something is definitely off there. Your diagonals are showing your depth. Here, if it's horizontal, horizontal, work with groups of 3. This should be horizontal. And then you just erase whatever's left over. So now I have my cube looking at it from another direction. So those are 3 different ways to make a cube using diagonal lines. We are going to try one more way to make a cube, and this is with 1-point perspective. Now, perspective just means how you look at something. So we drew this cube this way, and this way. Now we're going to do 1-point perspective, which is called a focal point. So we take our focal point, and now you're going to draw your square somewhere else. I'm going to put my square. I'm going to put one right in the middle. Ooh, that's a wavy line. Let's try to get that straight. I'm going to use my ruler this time. That came out super funky. There we go. So you have one under your focal point. Now you're going to put one off to the side, on one side, and one off to the side on the other side. Okay, so I have 3 squares and only one focal point. Now using your ruler, here's another way that you can create 3-dimensional shapes without the use of parallel lines. When you're doing 1-point perspective, your lines are going to be coming together a little bit. So here I have my focal point lined up with my corner. I'm going to draw a light line all the way from the focal point to the corner. And I'm going to do that with all of 3 corners on this square. Now I'm not doing it from the bottom corner because my square is not see-through. If your square was see-through, if it was translucent, then you would see it going to that bottom corner. Okay, I'm going to do it from the middle shape now. From the focal point to the corner, from the focal point to the corner. Now I can't really get to either of these corners unless it was see-through, right? Those lines end up inside my box. So you're not really going to see those. You don't need those there. And then my last one, focal point to corner, focal point to corner, focal point to the corner. Okay, so you can already see they should look like they're shooting out at you because they're getting smaller as they go back in space. Now, just because they're getting smaller doesn't mean that our verticals are any less vertical. So if you have vertical line, slide it for your vertical line. Horizontal, horizontal, match it up, horizontal. This one is one that we don't see because it's inside of our cube. And then you can erase the rest of your perspective lines that end up outside of your shape. And what you're left with is a cube in perspective. So here, horizontal, 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 vertical, vertical. I don't have another vertical because my perspective lines ended up inside my box. So I would only be erasing the top. Then vertical, vertical, slide it over for a vertical. Horizontal, horizontal, slide it up for your horizontal. Now your vertical and your horizontal do have to go to the same point there. Once you have that, you can erase your perspective lines. We're not going to be doing every shape using a 1-point perspective and a parallel method. I wanted to do that with your cube especially. So here you're going to write 1 point, remember 1 point, perspective. And remember, perspective means the way we're viewing it. So the reason that these appear to get smaller is because it's moving away from us in space. We're only doing that with the cube for right now because those lines really show us how it recedes in space. This is our parallel method. I'm going to write that word down here. Parallel. And this is our 1-point perspective method. Let's do another shape. Now that our cube is finished, we can move it off to the side. We're going to move on to our rectangular prism. Okay, your rectangular prism is a lot like a cube. You might be using a tissue box or something else for your rectangular prism. Very similar to a cube, but instead of starting off here with a square, we're going to start off with a rectangle. So again, if you would like to use your ruler to make your lines straight, I highly recommend it. But make sure that they are parallel lines because a rectangle, the lines never get closer or farther apart from each other. And then you should have parallel verticals. There's my rectangle. Now, just like before, from the bottom, diagonal, diagonal, and diagonal. Try to get it to line up. I felt mine twist. I want to make sure, ooh, look at that. I can use this edge to check my parallels. That was lucky. Okay, now I'm doing verticals. Do not just try to connect the sides. You can see that if I just try to connect the sides from where they are, this is creating a trapezoid. Vertical, vertical. This line should be vertical so that they all match. You can see how far off that was. That looks much better. Same thing with the bottom. Do not just try to connect this freehand. Horizontal, horizontal, slide it up, keep it parallel. Horizontal. This extra piece here just gets erased. And there's your rectangular prism. So we're going to try a rectangular prism a different way. We're looking at it like this right now. We're going to try to look at it like this. So we're turning the shape. So this time I do want you to start with a square. You can make it kind of smaller square if you're running out of space. But this time, instead of making short diagonals for our cube, I want you to add a longer diagonal. Longer diagonal. Remember, they're parallel. Longer diagonal. Hold on, check my parallels. That looks good. I noticed it was a little turned out, right? And I noticed it wasn't lining up. So make sure you're checking your parallels. Okay. Now, looks like a block of cheese or a stick of butter. Horizontal, horizontal, slide it way back. Horizontal. Vertical, vertical, slide it all the way over. Vertical. Anything that's left over, you just get rid of. So these are our rectangular prism. I'm not spelling them all for you because they are already on your forms. You should be able to spell those. So that's our rectangular prism. We're going to be moving on, so please click on the next video to see how to create the rest of our 3D shapes.